All right, joining us now from Singapore, NBC News chief foreign affairs correspondent and host of Andrea Mitchell Reports, Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, what did we learn from the Secretary of State and his briefing this morning?
Well, the Secretary of State making it very clear that they are prepared, Mika, to offer assurances and security guarantees unlike any that have ever been offered to North Korea if North Korea denuclearizes. And they're now talking about denuclearizing the entire Korean Peninsula, which has been North Korea's bargaining position. He was asked whether that means that the United States is now prepared to withdraw troops, in fact, to not fly the B-52s and other bombers and submarines that are nuclear capable in the region. And he said he's not going to be specific about troop withdrawals or about moving any of these assets. He's just saying that they are prepared to offer North Korea new security guarantees, unlike any that they've ever had, if they give up their nuclear weapons. So this is a significant statement going into the summit, which is taking place today. There have been meetings with the experts on both sides today, 2 meetings today, in fact, led by first of all, the ambassador to the Philippines, Sung Kim, and others on the North Korean side. Interestingly, his counterpart on the North Korean side is the vice foreign minister, the same vice foreign minister who insulted Mike Pence, which led, of course, to the letter from the president 2 weeks ago canceling this and then, of course, resuming it once North Korea showed that they really wanted the flexibility. But the backdrop to all of this, I have to say, is the disastrous G7 summit, which White House officials were saying was a show of strength by the president, but it's also certainly a show of, first of all, the fact that they are not getting along with any of their European allies. So he was asked about that as well, and asked about, of course, the U.S. trade advisor Navarro, saying that there's a special place in hell for Pierre Trudeau. He said there were always irritants in the relationship, but it's very clear that Mike Pompeo, America's top diplomat, is very uncomfortable about what happened at the G7 summit and is just unprepared to say so.
Wow. Mika. Andrea Mitchell, thank you very, very much.
Thanks, so.
Yeah, those comments were just so over the top.
Yes.
And,
well, they were over the top.
That's not even the way to describe it.
Well, and
it really was the language of war.
The thing is, what's unbelievable is that they had a good press conference with Donald Trump before he left, before he flew out. So my relationship's a 10. My relationship's a 10. Yeah. And then he plunges the U.S.-Canadian relationship literally into its low point.
Yeah.
Really? For a long time. I mean, you know, how do you get to loggerheads with Canada? It's really a hard thing to do.
You know,
as I was watching the remarks and then saw Justin Trudeau's comments, I literally thought to myself, the guys at South Park couldn't even imagine this sort of blame Canada scenario.
All but say, you know,
John Candy,
and
Canadian
I'm sorry.
bacon.
You know, I mean, it was so kind of Canadian. But
the problem here, Gene, is that as we turn now to North Korea, Donald Trump, and I will say it again, I always thought that Barack Obama was far too desperate for a Iran deal, and I think it was a horrific deal. I do. It doesn't make sense for us to get out of it right now, but at the time I thought he was too desperate. I think now Donald Trump is desperate for a deal. It's got to look good for him. He could withdraw U.S. troops from the Korean Peninsula, and he would be playing right into China in Putin's hands.
Yeah, and they would just applaud. And look at the way these two summits are interconnected in this sense. There will come a time, assuming this North Korea process continues, there will come a time when the United States wants to have its European allies and the G7 countries join in imposing sanctions or threatening sanctions or ramping up pressure. So he has now ticked them off to the extent that they're not going to just kind of do that, you know, out of friendship. Yeah. And with his trade policies, he actually, in a way, is making it more difficult for the U.S. to have leverage to compel that sort of compliance by the fact that we're the reserve currency and the biggest economy and everything like that. These trade policies are making, you know, potentially people turn away from the dollar, turn away from the U.S. financial system in a way they haven't before.
It seems like the phrase "leader of the free world" might be obsolete based on what we see.
Right now.
Absolutely. Jeremy Bash, jump in on that note. And also, if you can't get along with the most polite nation in the world, really at the onset of the most important nuclear negotiation and the first summit with North Korea, I don't think the scene could be set in a more worse and dangerous way to have this president walking into that meeting one-on-one.
Yeah, and it calls into question whether or not we're going to keep our word. And you heard Secretary Pompeo talk about the need to build up trust. And a couple of other things I noted from Pompeo's presentation. I don't know if the others in the panel think this, but he really seemed to be walking back a couple of things that Trump had put out there. First, he basically said we're going to do complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization before we relieve any of the sanctions. That's not exactly the tone that the president had laid out there. The president had basically said, I want to, get rid of maximum pressure. And the second thing is he made clear that what North Korea seeks, which is the declaration of peace, maybe a peace treaty, that won't come until we get what we need on the denuclearization front. And again, I think we could see tonight, 8 o'clock East Coast time, a declaration of peace, a statement, something coming out of Donald Trump's mouth that talks about peace. That's exactly what the North Koreans want out of this.
All right, Jeremy Bash, thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow morning on set following tonight's historic summit. Coming up, Mitch McConnell couldn't be happier about how conservative values have fared under President Trump. We'll break that down.
20 indictments.
I don't get it.
Largest debt spike, biggest spending bill ever. A payoff to a porn star.
Fantastic.
High water mark, Mitch. Good job, buddy. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.